what it is and how to do it. So, if you, um, there's one or two people here, if you have any questions or thoughts about jamming, taking your harmonica, not just playing a song that's been pre-written, pre-recorded, but actually maybe playing to that song and making up your own melodies. That's what jamming in improv basically is. It's taking a song which typically has kind of a rhythm and it has a key and it has some chord changes. And if you don't know what all those mean, I will explain some of that here as I'm going along, so no worries on that. And let me just adjust this a teeny bit. There, okay. All right, I like that a little bit better. So, anyway, my point is, by the way, for those of you that are watching this have seen me before, I like to point out stuff that maybe is obvious and really not important. But normally I was wearing a sweatshirt, and I decided not to wear the sweatshirt because it's a little hot here in Los Angeles, where I live in the Santa Monica Mountains. And but I do like the red. I like the way the red pops out on the kind of blue purple background. So there, I put this on instead. There's my fashion statement for the day. Okay, let me get going on the discussion of what is jamming in improv. And there's two kind of ways to play music. You can play a song that's been pre-written or pre-recorded. And let's say there's a recording of Oh Susanna, and you want to play along with it, but you want to play the melody. So you would need to know the melody, and you either find the music for it or the harmonica tablature for it, or you use your ear and you just try to figure it out. And a lot of times, if you just get the first starting note, it's easier then to find the rest of the song. So, and if any of you are here live watching or watching the recording of this, if you can't do it and you say, well, I'm tone deaf and I've got a tin ear and I can't do that, give yourself time. You will be able to do it. The best thing you can do in the meantime is learn a bunch of songs and learn melodies. And if you're playing diatonic, chromatic, figure out where it starts and just play through it a whole bunch of times and memorize it and then play it a lot. And once you're sick to death of that, then pick up another song. And the good thing is, talked about songs. I didn't mean to get into song playing today. Wanted to stick with jamming. But the good thing about songs is that if you have 3, 4, 5 songs always ready to go, sooner or later people find out you play harmonica, and because you play harmonica, they say, can you play something for me? Well, if you've just learned how to do hand effects or bend notes, techniques don't really impress people and they don't find it very musical or interesting. So what you want to be able to do is actually play them a song, especially, particularly a melody that they may already know. So that's always a good way to go. And so when you're starting out, memorizing a few songs is an excellent way to go with the harmonica. So anyway, that's song playing. But the other aspect of music is you take a song and instead of playing the melody to it, you're basically going to make up your own melody to it. And that's called improvisation. For short, we sometimes call it improv, and it's also jamming, right? Improv is more like you're making stuff up. Jamming is more, typically the term is used when you're playing with other people. But you could be jamming to an MP3 or jamming to something in your car, but the I just looked at something on the screen. I distracted myself. But jamming is typically like, let's say you're playing with a guitar player and a singer, or a keyboard player, a bass player, or a band. And you're not playing the melody of whatever song they're playing. You are making up your own stuff. So that's what I'm going to talk about a bit today, unless somebody comes in and says, Dave, I have a question. It doesn't have anything to do with jamming or improv, but what is, and if I don't get that question, then I'll just keep talking about the jamming and improv, what it is and how to do it. So I'm already talking about what it is. It's making up your own melodies. Now, here's something a lot of people don't discuss and a lot of players don't know. If somebody said, "What's a good way? What's a good way to me for me to intellectually approach jamming to a song?" Well, one of them I'll talk about a few different ones, but one good one is what's called a scalar approach. And what you do is you find the scale that seems to be most appropriate for the song you're trying to play to. And when you find that scale, you use those notes and you make up a new melody with it. Now, that's a little difficult sometimes for people that are just getting started and they're a little afraid. So, what you can do is you need to get the information from me or my website. You can see it behind me, harmonicalessons.com, or somebody else you know who's fairly talented and as in the harmonica world, or even a guitar or piano player. They can give you some helpful information. But for instance, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Oh Susanna. These songs are basically primarily what's called a major pentatonic scale, and the major pentatonic scale comes from a major scale. And if that's like, yeah, Dave, I get that, right over your head, don't worry about it. I'll explain stuff as we go along. But if you can figure out what the melody for the song is, either because you get the tabs or the notes or whatever, you can figure that out, and then you go, it's got this note and 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 this note. Those notes, those different notes, basically make a scale. And if you take those scales that the melody for the song is made up of, that's going to be an excellent place for you to start to make up your own melodies. Okay, and that's basically what improv is. If you're playing the exact same notes at the same time that the melody is, you're not really improvising, you're just playing the melody, and that's good too. But today we're talking about playing, making up your own stuff, basically. So, one of the great ways to do that is to play. I just distracted myself, thought of something completely different. One of the best ways to do that is to take a scale, which is a linear collection of notes like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or in the key of C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That all kind of means the same thing. That is a C major scale. And sometimes we number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it makes it easy to make chords out of the scale and do other kinds of interesting stuff with it. So don't worry about it. Again, if some of this stuff is over your head, I found when I started, and I've found over the years with most of my students, when they get into theory stuff that they don't already know or understand, it usually takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times of hearing it, and then they go, oh, okay, I don't know why I didn't get it before. I get it now. Okay. All right. So if you're getting some of this, that's great. If you're not getting any of it, you can always go back and watch this video once it's posted, which should probably be a good, 5 minutes after I get done today. So there are a couple of different ways to intellectually approach how you're going to improvise or play to a song without playing the melody. A really, really good one is a scalar approach. And a lot of instrumentalists do that. So for instance, let's say they're going to be playing a blues in the key of G. And if they know a blues scale in G on their guitar or their saxophone or their harmonica, that's a great place to start playing to a song that's blues in G. Make sense? hopefully that's pretty easy. Let me show you. Um, if I have a blues in G, I can take what is called a blues scale. And there is some math that goes to this, but don't worry about that now. We'll get to that kind of stuff later. But a blues scale, just for those of you that do know some theory, it's the first note of the scale, the one, and then there's no two, there's no second note of the scale, and the third is flatted. So it's a one, flat three, four, flat five, five, no six, and a flatted seventh, and then one again, which sometimes we call eight because we didn't start on that note. It's an octave higher. So again, if you're getting some of this, great. You're not getting it all, don't worry about it. You hear it a few times and it all makes sense. So here's a blues scale in second position on my C diatonic. And again, I'm playing it in second position, sometimes called cross harp, and it sounds like. So I'm just randomly screwing around playing with the notes of the blues scale on my C harmonica, playing in second position, sometimes called cross harp, and it puts me in the key of G. So you don't have to worry about that exactly what key you're on. And in fact, if you happen to own a Lee Oscar harmonica, a C harmonica on the end says C, first is C, and on the other end, it says second is G. So just without going into positions, because that's not where we're going today, but first position on a C harmonica is the key is C, and it is mostly blow notes, primarily blow notes in the middle part of the harmonica. The second position is primarily draw notes at the low end of the harmonica, and most people who get decent at the diatonic harmonica will tend to play second position, not first position. People are just starting and they want to play campfire songs or folk melodies or play like Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Tom Petty, that kind of thing. They'll tend to play first position. And nothing good or bad about that. It just is what it is. But a lot of people who want to play blues or rock or country will essentially take their C harmonica, primarily focus on the draw notes at the low end, and that puts them not in the key of C, but the key of G. And if you don't get all that now, that's okay, one thing at a time. But here's an easy way to do it. I take my left hand, thumb is the key of the harmonica. This works for most keys of harmonica, and there are 12 of them. And then you just count. You go C, D, E, F, G is the second position key for a C diatonic. If you have an A diatonic, the first position is A, and by the way, that's also 4 blow on an A harmonica would be A, and go A, B, C, D, E. The second position key, which is primarily draw notes at the low end of the harmonica on an A harmonica, is the key of E. So if you wanted to play in second position, and you may be asking yourself, well, first position seems more straightforward. Why even bother with the second position thing? It's because in second position, because you're primarily emphasizing those draw notes, mostly 2 draw, 3 draw, and 4 draw, you can bend those notes. And that bending sound, which is done primarily on the draw notes at the low end of the harmonica, and mostly on 2 draw, 3 draw, and 4 draw, that gives you that classic blues sound, that bending thing. So you hear that in blues harmonica. You hear that in Sorry, I just started. I do this all the time. I started thinking about something. I was like, no, 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 no. You're still in the middle of teaching. You hear blues harmonica, country harmonica, bluegrass harmonica, rock harmonica. It's all good. So second position is very, very important and common for those. Styles of music. If you say, I just want to do some simple melodies, campfire songs, and maybe play like Neil Young, Heart of Gold, that kind of stuff. You don't need the second position for that. It's just basically first position. Okay, anyway, enough about the positions. Back to the jamming. So, jamming and improv are essentially the same thing. If you are playing with a group of people, could be one other person, could be two, three, or four, could be a small band. Well, we typically refer to that as jamming, but you could say I'm improvising with this group of people. It's all kind of the same thing, but improv is basically, again, making up the notes you're going to play instead of playing a melody. Okay, and typically the best group of notes to improvise with is the group of notes that are found to be the notes that make up the melody of the song. So sometimes you have to ask somebody or you have to figure it out, but you start playing a melody and you go, oh, well, that's these five notes. So you keep playing those five notes and in a different order, and now you're improvising. Okay? So there we go. Let me keep going. That's one way that answers the question, well, how do you do it? You can do it with scales. Another thing that people do, and it's less common with harmonica, but it's very, very common with other instruments, guitar and bass and piano and jazz instruments like flute and saxophone, tenor and alto, and trumpet, clarinet. They're not only playing the notes that fit the key of the song, which is typically, again, the notes from the melody of the song, but they are also playing with the chord changes. And I don't want to get too deep into that right now. I have a system that I teach on my website called Target Notes. And Target Notes is pretty simple. And what it means is that if the guitar player or the piano player, bass player, if they play a G chord, I'm going to play a G note. I'm going to target the root of their chord, and I'm going to play a note that fits it very nicely. And a G note against a G chord, you can't go wrong. You just can't fail. It's always going to sound good. When they go to a different chord, like let's say what's called the 4 chord, don't worry if you don't understand the numbers there, it goes to a C chord, G, A, B, C, and I play a C note on the harmonica. So what I'm doing is I am targeting the root or the name of the chord with that same note on the harmonica. And typically we do this in second position. So if I'm doing blues, which consists of, in the key of G, a G chord, a C chord, and a D chord, when they play the G chord, I'm going to play G, which for me, on a C diatonic, is 2 draw. When they go to the C chord, the 4 chord, I'm going to play 4 blow. And that makes it very, very easy to follow along. And when they finally go up to that 5 chord on bar 9, again, I'm throwing some terms out there. Don't worry about getting everything at once. But when it goes to bar 9 of the 12 bar blues and it goes to the 5 chord, we know G, A, B, C, it's a D. So I find a D on my harmonica, which I know on my C harmonica, and I'm playing second position, is 4 draw or 1 draw. And they're both appropriate. So you can probably guess without even hearing what's going on with this stuff that the target notes, you can't really fail with those. But the problem with that for a lot of beginners is they don't necessarily know the chords when they come up in the song. And that's why I start people off with target notes in 12 bar blues, because generally speaking, 12 bar blues goes 1 chord 2 3 4 and 4 chord 2 3 back to the 1 chord 2 3 4 1 chord 2 3 up to the 4 chord 2 3 4 4 chord 2 3 back to the 1 chord 2 3 4 1 chord 2 3 and up to the 5 chord and the 4 chord, and then the 1 chord 2 3 4 and the 5 chord 2 3. So if I go, and that starts over at the top again. So once you get through that 12, those 12 bars, it starts over. It just keeps repeating. And that's why 12 bar blues, whether you're a diatonic player or chromatic or a jazz player, or you're playing guitar or piano, it's a great place to start because it's kind of always the same. So that makes it a little bit easier. So the two most important and common ways for most musicians, especially not harmonica players, but horn players, piano players, guitar players, is they play scales and they play over these chord changes. Now, there are other ways to do this, and I can never remember all of them, but I have a page in the members area at my website, harmonicalessons.com, that thing behind me. I've got a section called theory. And in theory, I break it up into two types of theory: music theory and harmonica theory, because there is some stuff that is just only going to apply to harmonica. So one of the pages within harmonica theory is I talk about the eight different approaches to jamming, to improvising. So one, the two probably most basic for most instruments is the scalar approach and the chordal approach. Okay, so that's learning, let's say, a blues scale in second position, or even a major scale if you want to play in first position and jam to a major scale song. As I mentioned just briefly earlier, be careful when you want to play to stuff, whether it's pre-recorded like an MP3, you're jamming to something at Spotify, whatever. If you're playing along and you can't find notes that sound good, you may not be in the same key as the song. So one way or another, you need to find out what the key of the song is and then get the appropriate harmonica for it. Decide if you're going to play first position or second position, and then it's going to be better. It's just going to sound good when you're in the same key and you're playing basically the correct notes. So there you go. So that's how it's very important that you know the keys to songs. So it's like a whole nother, talk and lecture and all that stuff. But a lot of times these days, because of the internet, let's say you want to play to a Bob Dylan song, Blowing in the Wind. And you try with your C harmonica and you go, I think I'm playing the right notes for the melody, but it doesn't sound right. If I remember correctly, and I may not, I think he does it in E. Therefore, if you want to play in first position and jam with Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind, assuming it's an E and I remember correctly, and I may not, then you need an E diatonic and you play in first position. Okay? So, anyway. That's what that way is. So let me get back to the different methods or different, I call them intellectual approaches to improvising, because you can think ahead of time, I'm going to use a scale to jam to this song, or I'm going to play to the chord changes. It's 12 bar blues and I know the chord changes. Or hey, I'm a guitar player and I know this old song, Bring It On Home. If you ever change your mind, it goes from one chord to five chord. How about leaving back to one, leaving me behind? Then it goes to the four chord. So if you know the changes, you can use those target notes, which is the system I used to play along quarterly to sorry, I just looking over. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, I've been at this almost a half hour, so I'll go another 5-10 minutes just chatting on about this. Not too many people here today, but that's okay because I know that people will come back and watch it. So I'm trying to get all this information out. So another legitimate way to learn to play, but not my favorite, and I'll explain why in a second, is what you might call the riff approach. And a lot of harmonica players learn this way. They either get it off the internet, they learn blues riffs for the harmonica, and they learn that and they memorize them, and then they find the right key harmonica for the song, and they play their second position, and they go, okay, I'm going to play these riffs because I learned these, and I know 3 of them now, so I'm just going to play them. The thing I don't like about teaching people how to jam or improvise with the riff approach is that the notes of the riff, don't tell you anything about the timing of them. And even if you have the timing, how do you know it's going to fit the song that you're playing to? Because you don't know the tempo, the speed of the song. You don't know the groove of the song. There's 2 main types of grooves in music. There's what's called straight eighth notes and shuffled eighth notes. And I can't go into that now. Maybe I'll do another class at some point and discuss the difference and give you examples of straight versus shuffled eighth notes. But I don't like the riff approach as much because the riff doesn't tell you how to insert it into a song. And I know a lot of people, they start with trying to learn some riffs and then they can't make it work. And it's because it fit in that song you got it from, but it doesn't fit in the song that you're currently trying to insert it into. So, but it is another legitimate way of working. And as you go along, you're going to find as you get more advanced and you get more what's the word I'm looking for? You get better at using these different approaches. You do start to mix them up. So you might find you're using blues scale to jam to a blues song, but you're also sometimes using those target notes to hit like a firm bass. And everybody goes, oh yeah, it was going all over the place, but boom, now he's right back where he should be. Or her. I've had lots of female students over the years too. I haven't had any recently. I don't know why that is, but things come and go and change. But anybody, male, female, young, old, anybody can learn to do something new, and especially play harmonica. So anyway, let me give you one other really decent approach to jamming or improvising to a song. Let's say it's a song and you don't know the chord changes to it. Okay, and there's nobody you can ask. You don't know the chord changes, and you're not really even sure exactly the melody of the song or what scale that melody comes from. So what I find is fairly common for those of you out there that maybe came from some years of playing piano, keyboard or guitar or a horn. You have a pretty good ear. And what you can do is you start trying to play the melody while you're jamming. And it's what I call the melodic approach because it's based on the melody. So all you do is you start somewhere and you kind of hope you're near the starting point of the melody. But what you do is to play melodically, basing what you do on a melody. When the melody goes up, you go up. When the melody goes down, you go down. When the melody holds a note, then you can hold notes too. And even if you don't start in the right place, let me give you an example. If I do "Oh Susanna," it's one of my songs has been with me since day one, frankly, back when I first started to play a long time ago. But listen to this is just first position. Now, I can actually, if you're swift enough and you know it, you can play it in second position on your C diatonic in the key of G. So it's there. But let's say you want to jam to a song and you want to give it more of a bluesy sound. And you don't even know what the starting note is. You can actually start anywhere. I'm going to play second position, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to improvise to "Oh Susanna," and you will most likely be able to follow along and hear it. So I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So near the end, I just strayed a little further from the melody, but I kind of started with the basic rhythm and timing of the melody. So anyway, no questions today, but that's okay. Hopefully this class did help. As always, I'm Dave Gage. You can find me at harmonicalesson.com if you need to ask me a question. You can use the contact page there. You can put comments here underneath these videos I do. I'm going to continue to do some of these live classes at YouTube, and at some point I'm going to start doing some TikTok live classes too. Still got some technical stuff I got to work out to get that happening, but I will get it worked out just like I got this worked out, or at least that's what they tell me.